We hope you enjoy this episode of the Modern Arizona podcast. But first, an important message for our listeners.
Hello, this is Billie Tarascio, owner of Modern Law. We're a family law firm in Phoenix, Arizona, with offices throughout the state. We have attorneys who can help you with every aspect of your family law case. We also have a legal clinic run by students for those of you who need budget-friendly resources, and we have lawyers who've been practicing for more than 20 years. Collectively, Modern Law has more than 200 years of legal experience. So when you hire Modern Law, you're not just getting an attorney, you're getting a team. If you live in Arizona and need representation, call us today. That's 480-649-2905 or visit us at mymodernlaw.com. Hello and welcome to the Modern Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Billie Tarascio, joined today by Modern Law attorney Lauren McAlpin. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. Lauren is one of our Tucson attorneys. She has a pretty incredible background that I'm excited to share with everyone. So, Lauren, let's start with what made you go to law school?
That is a very interesting question. And I think it was a combination of things. I was definitely one of those kids that always wanted to be a lawyer, but not really sure why.
Mm-hmm.
It was just something that I think I said and then eventually followed through with. I went to undergrad at University of Kentucky and then took a 2-year break to figure out what I was going to do next. I was toying with the idea of an MBA and then toying with, do I really want to follow through and go to law school? I knew it was going to be a lot of debt, but at the end of the day, I knew I really wanted to help people. I wanted to put my ability to solve problems and critical thinking to good use. And so I eventually just bit the bullet and decided to start applying for law school.
It's pretty cool, right?
It is. It
like
is.
It's a special thing to get to do.
It is. I get to learn a lot about everybody and different backgrounds and kind of become a mini expert on a whole bunch of different random things.
Yeah. Yeah. But mostly what you said, problem solving, like people bring you big, huge problems. And somehow our training has helped us figure out how to solve big, huge problems.
Absolutely.
And even if we don't know the exact answer, we know how to get the information to solve your problem, which is a really remarkable position to be in. It's an honor.
It is an honor. And I don't hold that lightly. I definitely appreciate that people come to you sometimes at their lowest points in life.
So you said you went to school in Kentucky. Were you born in Kentucky?
I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. So home of Muhammad Ali and the Kentucky Derby. That's usually the two things that people have heard of. And then I ended up going to Atlanta to go to law school and started practicing there. So I graduated in 2013, continued my practice, and then became a military wife in 2019, which kind of changed the trajectory of my career path.
Were you always doing family law?
I was doing a mixture of family law, yes, in different ways. So for a while, I was representing the Department of Family and Children's Services as what they call down there, their special assistant attorney general. So what you're doing is representing the actual department in dependency cases, meaning children that have been abused or neglected, for those that aren't as familiar with the lingo. And then I also went on the other side of that and started representing children in DeKalb County in dependency cases, which was definitely a beautiful career, but also had a lot of secondary trauma, but it exposed me to just the family dynamics and how everything works. And it gave me, I think, a very different insight on how all of these things impact a family.
Yeah. So when you're working for, DCS or CPS and you're their lawyer, you're sort of a prosecutor.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. I mean, definitely when you're representing the state, you are a prosecutor. It's our case. So we're backing the department who made a decision to remove a child, because you do have a constitutional right to your child. And that's basically where it comes from. You have a constitutional right to your child, and to raise them in a way that you see fit, unless there are, extenuating circumstances. And so, as a representative of the department, my job was to determine whether or not that removal, or prove that removal was in fact constitutional, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. And it's not like it's your choice. You're not the investigator. You are tasked with, make the case on behalf of your client, the state, who has decided that these children should be, removed, and or parents' rights should be terminated, or whatever it might be.
Absolutely.
So then, do you do juvenile work now today?
I have done some, with modern law. I've done a few termination cases, and adoption cases. One thing that I have learned just in general in family law, and I knew this even working with DCS, is that sometimes these allegations come out in the middle of a divorce. Usually it's two people in court fighting one another, or disagreeing on how the child should be raised, and then an allegation comes up, and next thing you know, you're down in juvenile court. So it has given me a different view in how I even work some of these divorce cases, because I do understand how these mandated reporters come in and take these cases from what started to be just a regular divorce action and a custody matter, into now we're in dependency court as well.
Yeah. And I think most of the time we as family law attorneys try to steer our clients out of juvenile court. We want to keep them out of juvenile court so that they can be the ones making decisions for their children. We can't always do that.
100% right. That's the goal.
Yeah. But DCS or CPS, whatever they are in your state, they're not always on your side. And yet sometimes they do become kind of a tactical decision within a family law case. Can you talk about that?
Well, when you're talking about a tactical decision, are you saying whether or not to get CPS involved?
Yes.
It can be a decision, depending on how bad the allegations are. Sometimes it is in your best interest in your child custody case, or in your child's best interest at the end of the day, to get CPS involved. I always tell my clients that you are the mother or the father. I cannot tell you not to call CPS if you truly believe that something is truly going on. And sometimes we can't get into that home to find out what's really going on. Sometimes the other party isn't being forthcoming with us, no matter how much discovery we're serving, no matter what's going on. But unlike a dependency case, the child is not a party to your divorce. And so the child's voice isn't always naturally heard. And the judge sometimes is just looking at the child's name and date of birth on a piece of paper and taking all parties' words for what's going on. So it can become a tactical decision to, let's get a third party involved. If we can't get a child advocate, let's go to CPS, make sure that the home is safe, because they're going to do their due diligence more than the judge in a dissolution action is going to do.
Yeah, a judge can't go in your house. And let's say you ask for a court-appointed advisor, or you ask for oversight and you can't get it, and you're sure there's no risk that's going to come to you. There's no possible way that you're going to be found guilty of child abuse or drug use or whatnot. Then sometimes the investigative powers of DCS can be real useful.
Absolutely. I agree.
So what brought you to family law?
So it was kind of a natural progression. In Tennessee, I was working for a firm that also did family law as well. And so family law was something that was always sprinkled into all of my experience. So from the beginning, I worked for more general firms that even when I was doing, like, let's say entertainment law, it was still family law at its base, and we had entertainment contracts. It was Atlanta, Georgia, so it's a little bit different. A lot of lawyers dabbled in entertainment law and represented more high-end clients on custody matters.
Okay, so that's interesting. We got to talk about that. What does that mean?
Well, as far as what, the entertainment aspect?
Yeah, how would entertainment law tie into a divorce?
So generally, when you have a law firm that considers itself an entertainment law firm, it was one of two things. Either they strictly do contract negotiations for entertainers, or they tend to represent entertainment clientele. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you were at firms that had entertainment clientele,
Mm-hmm.
then you were handling more of their prenuptial agreements, postnuptial agreements, estate planning needs, child custody matters, and things of that nature. So that's what that entailed. It was just a different type of clientele, entertainers and athletes.
Sure. Most of the time I think of Nashville or LA, but it sounds like Atlanta is a hub for performers.
It is for actors. There's actually a really good Actors Guild down there, and there was a tax credit years ago that came to Georgia that allowed individuals to make their films in the state of Georgia in general. And actually, I think Louisiana is actually another really big entertainment
Hmm.
location because of the tax credit that comes along with it. So they do pull a lot of entertainers down to Georgia.
Very cool. When did you get to Arizona?
Got to Arizona in 2021 at the end, I believe. So it's been a bit of a journey. So before that, we were in Tennessee. I was practicing in Nashville, and then ended up here in Pima County, Tucson. In
Got
20,
it. And so what were you doing in Nashville?
the same thing. I was working for a litigation firm
Mm-hmm.
in Nashville. It was all during the pandemic, so it was very different because the entire time I was there, I think I got there in December of 2019. And within a couple of months, everything switched on its head. So it was a different type of practice. Everything was virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
It's got to be hard being a military spouse and a lawyer.
it is. It is, but it's definitely fruitful, and I'm grateful for just probably within the last, I don't know how long it's been, but they did put things into the profession to make it easier for us to transition,
Yeah.
because sometimes our situation is very temporary in places. The different bar associations have come together and said, okay, we need something for these military spouses that are moving around every 3 to 4 years
Right.
and needing to practice,
Yeah.
because for a while, I think 10 years back, the practice just wasn't up to date on that. You were
Right.
just stuck with your bar membership wherever it is, and then you pick up and try to take another bar, and by the time you get through the red tape of that, you're moving again. So luckily, Arizona is one of those states that put in two exceptions for military spouses that have been practicing for a significant amount of time, that don't have to go and sit and wait and take another bar and pay all of the crazy dues that come along with that.
Yes. The process of getting licensed in a state literally can take years. And there are so many hoops to jump through, and it basically renders or could render a military spouse's career just, well, I mean, I guess you could do trademarks or immigration, right? Federal law only.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's kind of what I started doing when I came here. I was just like, well, at this point, I can still have my permanent bar membership in Georgia. At that time, my membership here was pending.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, I'll do trademarks. And
Mhm.
luckily, the only positive thing I think that came out of the pandemic was the virtual aspect of practice, and that a lot of courts were still virtual. So I still had some family law clients that I was dealing with in Georgia that I was able to still attend court hearings
Mhm.
because they were all 100% virtual at the time.
Yeah, the pandemic like demanded modernization, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you've been in Arizona since 2021. What are some differences you notice in the family courts here versus the family courts in other states you practiced in?
Well, specifically, most of my time is spent in Pima County. So I don't think that there are too many differences. I think every court is different, whether it comes to the how modern the court is. We don't have the fancy technology that you guys have up there in Phoenix that I've been seeing with the nice TV screens and everything else to project. So I mean, there's those types of differences, but I think just every judge is unique. It
Mhm.
is important that having somebody that's consistently practicing in front of those judges to get to know, you know, where kind of how they land on certain issues. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to win every time, but it's good to know if you're in front of a judge just a little bit more cautious and crossing every T and dotting every I when it comes to child abuse and neglect allegations. Some of the ones have military backgrounds that I'm learning. You know, a lot of them are a little bit more sensitive to issues that surround some of our military clientele.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just a different dynamic in the type of judges that we have on the bench. And it also brings different styles of lawyering here than what I saw in the South. We're a little bit more you know, the Southern Belle and the little nice nasty down there. It's definitely different out west.
Nice nasty. Okay, so what does that mean?
You know how they say a good Southern belle knows how to you know, hurt your feelings, but you don't know it. The bless your hearts.
Yes,
Type of thing.
yes.
So it's just a difference in how people present themselves, and the lawyers are just a little bit different down there.
Yeah. So have you gotten to know the judges and the lawyers in Pima County?
Yes, it's been a great experience, getting to know all the different judges. Obviously, I haven't been in front of all of them yet, but it's definitely been a lot of the same judges that I'm in front of right here in Pima.
Are you noticing any themes?
Themes. In what way? Let me think.
Well, so there seems to be some, kind of cultural shifts. Like for a while, parental alienation intervention was huge, huge. So much so that now there's new legislation that's really clawed that back, which I think is a good thing. I do personally. But then you've got trends when it comes to newborns, how judges are treating newborn custody arrangements or custody arrangements in general are very different from state to state. Like when I moved here from Oregon to Arizona, Arizona was much more progressive, much more pro 50-50 than Oregon was. I'm wondering if you have seen those types of differences at all.
Well, I haven't yet, not that I can pinpoint, but I would definitely like to come back and talk about that. I do think that it is different because Georgia wasn't a community property state either. So that was, I guess, part of the shock. And I know that a lot of my military clients are usually shocked by that as well. Unfortunately, sometimes by the time I get to them, they've already initiated a case here, but they've had residences other places where it might have been a little bit more in their favor to initiate the case somewhere else.
Can you talk more about that? I think that this is critical and most people don't know this and don't understand this. So can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So with military in particular, we have we have the Air Force base that's here. My husband is out at what we call Fort Huachuca, which is about an hour. How far is Sierra Vista? Sierra Vista is about an hour away from here. So that's Cochise County. So a lot of the clients that we get here at Modern Law, I think, are mainly Air Force and Army in particular. And there are federal laws that protect military members when it comes to divorces. You are still tied into whatever state you're getting a divorce in, but that law protects you from a couple of things. One, from them serving you while you are overseas or deployed. So in a way, you could prolong the case a little bit. It doesn't help you if you're the spouse trying to serve the military member, but it keeps them from having to focus on being deployed and then still having a civil case with a lot of deadlines that come up in a divorce action. The second thing is that whenever you file a case for dissolution or child custody, you generally file it in the place where you reside. Military members, most of them have a completely different residence, especially if they're only in Arizona for a period of time. And sometimes, depending on your case, it's not all of the time, but you might be able to establish residency in a different state that might be more beneficial to what you're seeking. And I know for those that have listened to the podcast, they know that Arizona is a community property state. And that it's not always 50-50, but it's pretty much down the line. And depending on which spouse you are, it might not be the most beneficial state versus a state that takes into consideration other actions. Georgia was a state that took into consideration adultery and other things other than irreconcilable differences. So if you are filing for a dissolution for cause, it might benefit you to find a better state where you actually reside that has more beneficial laws.
Okay. And if I understand this correctly, and I'm not sure I do, when you enter the military, is it the domicile is retained at the initial state where you signed up?
Correct. Well, I don't know if it's always the initial state where you signed up. I'm not sure how they do that. I need to do a little bit of research on that. But I know a lot of them are technically domiciled in a different state. I don't know if it's where they sign up or just where they filled it out on their paperwork, because that's where like their, anything, if you serve them, sometimes their home state of record continues to be Tennessee, Michigan, whatever it is, even though you are what we call PCS. So you have like a permanent change of station here, or it could be a temporary change of station that lasts. Temporary could be years. So you're technically here and you meet all of the requirements to file for Arizona. But practically speaking, a divorce, as we know, can take a very long time, depending on how many assets that they have or how difficult it is with the other side. And it is possible that you end up moving before, the divorce is final. So yes, you do maintain your home state of residence, whatever that is. I'm not sure if it's based off of where you sign up, but you will maintain that. And also because of things like the VA loans and the GI Bill, a lot of military members have houses in other states too. Just by virtue of you move someplace, you buy a house, you rent it out. Sometimes the two of you live in two different locations because they don't come to your new duty station. So those are things that we keep in mind when determining where we're actually going to file, because Arizona isn't always the best place that you want to file it, depending on your certain circumstances.
What about the UCCJA? That is the act that determines which state has jurisdiction over children. Do courts have options there with regards to military personnel?
Well, I would think that it would happen the same way if the child, but it depends on where the child has been. So, sometimes I've had military clients that haven't even been living with their spouse, and so the child might share residences. So it might come into play there. I haven't had it happen where the UCCJA is actually involved, but I could see it absolutely coming into play, especially if the child is literally spending half time in another state with another parent on paper.
All right, tell me about some of your favorite cases.
Favorite cases. I think my favorite cases are the ones that are challenging, but that have, clients that are just eager to learn and are open. Because I like to be very straightforward with my clients. I like for them to have an understanding of what they're getting into. I don't want to drain somebody of all of their finances for the sake of arguing. That is not my style. If you want to fight and die on the sword for principle, I'm probably not your girl. But I think I like a good complicated case, but where the clients are open to options and not just it's my way or the highway.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I had a consultation the other day with somebody who really, really would like sole legal decision making or final legal decision making, and she'd like to have the kids with her most of the time. But the judge has already entered a temporary order of 50-50. It's been that way for 2 years. There's already been a comprehensive family assessment, and they've already recommended 50-50. Now there's a counselor who's also recommending 50-50. And I had to tell her, I don't think I can get you what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Even though you're willing to pay me, and it could cost you so much money, and we can fight your case and we can put your case forward. You're entitled to that. You have the right to do that. But I, like you, feel fundamentally off about wasting somebody's money.
Exactly. And I know there are people out there that would just take the money and say, yeah, we'll fight for it, knowing that you're going to get the same result. And it doesn't sit right with me.
Doesn't. So what do you do in that situation? You've got somebody who's coming to you. They've got concerns. They've got something they want. What can you do for them?
Oh, I tell them I'm very straightforward. I'm like, this is what the judge is going to decide. I will do whatever it is within the ethical bounds that you're asking me to do, but this is going to be the result. If unless there are real abuse allegations, is there a reason? Give me a reason why dad should not have the same amount of parenting time. I also try to prepare my clients.
Mhm.
I know, especially with my mom clients, they have a very difficult time with the idea that 50-50 parenting means I'm not going to get my child one Christmas. And they want to come up with every single possible arrangement where we can all just share Christmas together. He's not going to want to do that, you know? So I try to prepare them. That's all I can do is have that conversation on the front end. Okay, we're going to fight for this, but the likely outcome, knowing this judge, is going to be 50-50 unless you give me a reason
Right.
why it should not be. And that reason will pull up the factors.
Yeah.
It needs to fit into one of these boxes. There has to be something that we're missing in order to prove it.
This is Billie Tarascio, owner of Win Without Law School and Modern Law. Win Without Law School is a program that operates nationally and helps people who are representing themselves or who just need more help. If you are in a family court case and you're feeling confused, you need direction, you need help figuring out questions to procedural or strategic issues, Win Without Law School can help. At Win Without Law School, you've got two experienced attorneys, me and my partner, Julie LeBenz, who can guide you through the court process and help you troubleshoot your case. You've got access to courses, planners, checklists, and live Q&A. Our live Q&A is where you can get help from us and your community. We also have a closed Facebook group just for members where you all can share your experience, share your pleadings, get advice, and mentorship. Join us today at winwithoutlawschool.com. That's winwithoutlawschool.com. Right? And if you really, really, really want Christmas every single year, I've seen dads agree to that, but you gotta give them something, and you
give them
gotta
something in return.
give them something in return, and that's not something that you can ask a judge to do. There's a big difference between what can people agree to and what can we ask a judge.
I like to talk about that too, because one thing that I'm really big on is you do not want the judge making this decision. You really don't. If the best decision is going to be one that you guys agree to together, because the judge is just going to split the baby in half, and odd years, even years, it's going to be completely equal. If you want something other than what the judge is likely going to order, we're going to have to figure it out between the two of us.
Gonna have to get creative.
Yep.
What are some creative solutions that you've seen work?
I have seen a party on a temporary basis that I thought was creative, and it worked for the parties, of sharing a house and keeping the child in that house and then alternating out. So instead of the child going from house to house, child was staying in the home and the parents were the ones that were switching. And that was something that, I think it takes a lot of co-parenting and a lot of communication and a lot of trust. But to me, if I'm thinking about the best interests of the child, I can't think of a more perfect creative solution if you can make it work than that.
Birds nesting. It's highly controversial. How old was the child in that case?
The child is, I think, like 6.
6. And how long did they do this?
It's on a temporary basis.
So they're doing it right now.
Yeah.
And have you gotten any horror stories?
Not quite. Not quite, but I think it sounds like it's going to work until we get a final dissolution, which, because sometimes you don't have the money to move.
Right.
I mean, that's the practical aspect of this, is that you're expected to pick up and leave and then both take care of this precious baby. and somebody has to pay for an apartment or a rental property or go live with their parents. And that isn't always, financially practical. And then that child misses out on the benefit of having two parents that are able to financially care for them, because now they're strapped for cash taking care of two households.
Right. And there's a lot of other reasons why this could work. Let's say mom goes and stays with her parents in Peoria, which is an hour away from Mesa when she doesn't have the child. If she moved in with her parents in Peoria, she wouldn't be able to do 50-50 because she wouldn't be able to get the child to school, right? So
Right.
thinking through like logistics and getting really creative on logistics can be really important, especially on a temporary basis when you're scrambling to figure out all the finances and how to make two budgets work.
Absolutely.
Do you deal with a lot of order protection cases?
I've dealt with a few here, and those are always interesting. I actually enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
I do. And maybe that's just coming from my dependency background and fulfilling that need to really try and help and protect somebody that has allegations of abuse or neglect, because I do have a very big soft heart for domestic violence victims of any sort.
Yeah, well, you go into prosecutor mode, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And are you finding that most orders of protection are being upheld?
I have found that. But I've also had orders of protections where the petition was very well written and the allegations were very clear.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that I haven't, at least in my experience here, found the ones where the system was just being used to, move forward some other narrative. They have been very clear signs of either emotional or physical abuse on an ongoing basis.
What do you like to do for fun?
I love my Peloton right now. That is like my I'm a little bit obsessed. I am getting into hiking. That
Nice.
is my newfound thing. That's the beautiful thing about moving out to Arizona, is that when my family and friends in Kentucky are still freezing cold in the
Right.
winter, I'm still out showing them pictures of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I just love to travel, and anything outdoors is
Mm-hmm.
jam.
I was just in Tucson yesterday because my oldest is a freshman at U of A, and
Oh, they can move in.
yeah, he just had moved in. And every time I'm down there, the mountains are so beautiful. Like they're
They are.
remarkably beautiful.
They are. They're very beautiful. You can always see them just driving in. We have a light pollution law, so
Oh.
we don't have the big city lights like Phoenix, but they keep it rather dark. Some people don't like that,
Mm,
but I love the dark because you can see every star in the sky on a clear.
yeah, it's special. It's too bad we don't get to see stars anymore because of light pollution, which is such a crazy concept, but it's real.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want your potential clients or viewers or listeners to know about you?
Just that, one thing about me is that I do my best to, if I don't know the answer, I'm going to try to figure it out. I will research until I am blue in the face and have an answer for you. And I just truly enjoy helping people. I am very aware of the fact that by the time you're calling me, it's probably not the best time in your life. And so I try to be cognizant of that. And my goal is just to try to get you the best results possible, and hopefully the one that you want.
Yeah. I know this is true about you. You've got a case that has been tough. Like it's not going the way it's supposed to go. The judge is kind of slamming all the doors, and you've been relentless in figuring out, I don't care if you're closing this door, I'll find another door. And I just think that that is such a valuable asset to have in an attorney.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I definitely will not take no for a final answer. I just hear it as not right now. That's how I hear it. So it's a not right now.
Not right now, not right now, not this way. We gotta try something else. I love that. I love that very, very much. So, Lauren, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your experiences. It's been great getting to know you a little more, and I know people will really love this episode.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to the Modern Arizona podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, make sure to download it, like it, Leave a review and share it with your friends. If you know someone who would be a good guest or you would like to be on the Modern Arizona podcast, make sure to give us an email or reach out to us at mymodernlaw.com.